Okay, we are, we are,
We
we
are.
are.
We are live. Okay. All right. That's it's a good thing. It's a good thing to be live. It's a good thing to be alive because being alive these days give you a very unique opportunity as we will find out today, which is what we're doing every week here in the Great Transition. Welcome to the Great Transition, everybody.
Hi,
If
everyone.
yeah, hey Seth, hey Chris, Asaf here. And look, everybody, if this is your first time on the Great Transition, if you're watching the recording of this podcast for the first time, then let us tell you a little bit about what's going on here. We are looking at this very unique, precarious, and unprecedented time in human development, in human history, called the 21st century. And we're looking at it from the perspective of the wisdom of Kabbalah. This authentic ancient wisdom is um, is very unique in how it looks at humanity's development and specifically what's going on in our time. And if you feel that there's something really weird happening, then Kabbalah says you're right. We're going through a turning point in human evolution. Let me maybe try to put into context what we're going through from a Kabbalistic perspective. And again, then we'll go into what's happening in the world from that perspective. All right. So, well, see, all of our lives, all of human history, everything that we think happened, everything that we feel is happening now, from 13.8 billion years ago since the Big Bang, with the dinosaurs in between, and blah blah yada yada yada, human development, all of that stuff is happening within human consciousness. Life is a journey of our consciousness. All of human history is a journey of human consciousness. Now, we believe there is a material world outside of us. The truth of the matter is, and this is something that no one can prove or disprove otherwise, no one can really say that there is a material world out there outside of us, because whatever we perceive is always through our senses, through our perception, through our consciousness. And that's only the starting point from the perspective of Kabbalah. Everything in reality around us, from those dinosaurs millions of years ago to all the planets and the stars and billions of planets and galaxies, the whole cosmos, those huge celestial bodies, or those microscopic, biological creatures that exist maybe in the farthest realms of underwater marine life, that we're not even aware of yet with our five senses. But we can imagine all of that around us. All of that is us. We're exploring ourselves. The human being is exploring. The human beings are exploring their own
It's
consciousness.
poetically us or it's literally us?
No, it's literally our consciousness. The material world is a product of our consciousness, and more specifically, our collective consciousness. See, what Kabbalists found is that human beings are shattered bits and pieces of a single collective consciousness. Now, we think, because we are shattered bits of consciousness, we each perceive our own experience of the world, our own experience of me and my surrounding, me and my environment, me and the world, me and the cosmos. But where do you perceive and feel and experience all of that? Within your consciousness. And if we look at each other from that perspective, if we begin to look at each other as shattered bits and pieces of the same single consciousness that was shattered somehow, then we can begin to go on a very interesting journey where we can begin to remind each other that we're a single consciousness, where we can begin to remind each other that we are shattered bits of the same collective consciousness. And that means we can break through the illusion of separateness, the illusion of being separated pieces. And if we manage to remind ourselves how to do it, how to actually see each other as one consciousness, as one thing, as one being, then we can rise to a whole new perception of reality. Our time is the time in our evolution, the evolution of human consciousness, where we're beginning to move in this direction. And so the great transition is this time where in the 21st century, we're beginning to see that around us, the world, it's becoming very weird, very strange. We're becoming super hyper connected to each other through everything that happens. We're beginning to experience global challenges and troubles and problems or viruses that remind us, that show us, that demonstrate to us that we're all one interconnected being, a collective consciousness going through something. And the value of all the events in the world, from your social life, your personal life, to the big global issues that we see that are sometimes very scary, the value of these events is that they develop our consciousness. That's what we're coming to discover in the 21st century. I'll stop here.
No, hold on. There's a few
But
things. There's
yeah,
a few things. So
okay.
everything outside of me is my consciousness, and the value of all of the things that I'm perceiving is that it helps develop me in the right way. Just want to lay out, make sure I hear you
Yes,
correct. Okay.
exactly. There's evolutionary value in everything that's happening, but the events themselves, it's very controversial to say that, I understand, because some events leave us very hurtful or tragic. There are tragic things that are happening to so many people every day. But the true evolutionary value of them, of everything that happens, is beyond this temporary, transient material experience that we have. The value is the evolution of consciousness.
So they're
When
as if tragic, like because I'm not, because I'm relating it to this personal perception that I have.
Well, anything that happens to you in this material world might feel bad, from just hurting your stomping your feet or something like that, or to someone losing someone close to you. That's just a matter of degree. But we're going through things, good and bad. The value of them from a spiritual perspective, from a Kabbalistic perspective, is that they develop our consciousness. That's why each and everything is happening on personal, social, and global scales.
when
That's what we want to explore also. Where is this going? Where are we developing?
when when you have one, when if you close one eye, then you're not seeing in three dimensions. But when you open
Right.
your other eye, so now you have two things looking at the same object, right? The
Mm-hmm.
object itself doesn't change, but because you have two perspectives on it, now all of a sudden you get an extra dimension. And when you
Yeah.
said we're all one, the way that you explained it, I started to feel like I got some sensation that, for example, I'm one eye. If I can connect with another person somehow, and together we perceive reality, so then we can perceive reality
And
like through another dimension. If we add another
yes.
person in, and if we can finally connect everyone together and perceive reality, in that the reality we'll perceive will be the true reality. And by
Yes.
myself, yeah, wow, it's
And
beautiful.
and the coolest thing, that this is what the wisdom of Kabbalah is all about. The wisdom of Kabbalah, and that's why Kabbalists always studied in groups. That's why Kabbalah is a group practice, because it's the method that comes from people who realized that they're shattered pieces of the same perception, of the same consciousness. And if we begin to remind each other that, to awaken that these connections of consciousness
So what I may
between
be
us,
seeing is
yeah,
completely true, but it's only one piece of the.
it's true completely in a shattered perception. You can't, you can't just
You can't
go
say it's
through
not true.
walls.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't say it's not true, because if I put you in a virtual reality with those VR goggles and everything, and you live there for a while, and you forget that you're actually connected to it, what you're going through there is very real for you.
Bala Salam has an article. He says that a guy, you probably remember better than me, he says someone is on an island,
Oh
some
yeah,
and
say tell that. Yeah,
he's on an island for many, many years, and he thinks that that's all life. Like you're in VR for,
right.
a couple
And,
days, and you think
and
that's all life, and you forget. And he's explaining that our connected
yes,
perception is the true perception.
and that's exactly what's happening right now. We are all of humanity. We have, quote unquote, forgotten who we are and what we are. We think that we live in this world that is outside of us. We think some of it doesn't, we think it doesn't belong to us, right? Like things that are happening, they're happening. If they're very close to my body, then they're close to me. If they affect my immediate interests, then they're close to me. But if they're far away in miles or interests, then I think they don't belong to me. But if they're in my consciousness, they're in my awareness, they're in my perceptions, they're a part of me. That's what's really happening. We're gradually discovering, you are discovering, you being anyone who's listening to us right now, you're discovering that you are the created being. You are all of reality. You are all of humanity. You are the still and the vegetative and the animate. They're all layers and shapes and degrees of your own consciousness spilled out in front of you.
Asaf, this is a
Yeah.
problem, though. People run into this problem a lot, and you could see how
Mm-hmm.
methods develop and systems develop and tons of confusion develops because
Mm-hmm.
if I feel that I'm responsible for everything, right, I may become like a vegan Nazi. You know what I mean? Like, don't hurt anything, don't kill anything, don't step on it, or I may become, what a vegan Nazi is, like somebody who just like is like super
Well, you can take
aggressive
anything
about.
to the extreme,
Yeah,
sure.
or
Mm-hmm.
I'm responsible for the whole world, and so, well, anyway, that's a huge responsibility. So then I need to know where to begin because, okay, fine. I start to understand that I am connected, right? Somewhere inside of me, it really resonates with what you're saying, and I really get that.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so now I'm connected to all of reality and not only all of the other humans and all of the other suffering and experiences that all of the humans are going through, but you also mentioned all the animal level, all the vegetable level and all the inanimate level, all the
Mm-hmm.
stars, all the planets. So if I'm, first of all,
Right.
how do I even comprehend that? But second of all, I feel something that seems like it's probably right and it's real and I've heard it throughout my life that we're connected to things, but then where do I begin to access this system? Because that's very overwhelming
Yeah.
and very confusing, and you can waste
Mm-hmm.
dozens of years circling around and not really affecting the system.
Yeah.
Planting a lot of trees and not really saving the system, becoming a vegetarian and not really correcting the whole
Well,
Well,
system.
it kind of
uh,
accesses you. It approaches you. You don't know how to approach it. You're kind of this a side effect. You're kind of already the result. So whenever if you're already a result of something, then we always say that from this world you can't affect the upper world. You can't affect the world of cause. So we're as if trying to make some kind of action from this level. We're trying to do some kind of movement on this level to make some
mm-hmm.
influential change for the good, But then we're seeing that none of those things are actually working. So it's almost like we have
And
no change. And so it approaches
and
us.
This is
especially with the
this is the
wars. You go ahead.
yeah, yeah, the wars, the famines, the climate troubles,
The
the
virus.
the virus. This is what is so fascinating about this Kabbalistic approach, that if you really take it in, that we are pieces of the same consciousness, then all we need to do is rise to a new level of perception, to that connected perception. That's what's missing in our world. And our world will always be this shattered material perception. So all the problems that we have here, we cannot fix them directly. We can only cope with them on a material level. We can never fix the root of them, because the root of them is that we see ourselves as separate from each other, and separate from the planet, and separate from the animals, and separate from the cosmos. We see this shattered perception, and that prevents us from taking care of all of reality as a part of us.
It's almost like if imagine like I win the Super Bowl and they're holding me up high, and I know like I'm gonna get a huge uh, bonus check and I'm going to be in commercials, and that's me up here, and that's like my total experience. But if you like zoom in, right inside my colon, it's producing like
Mhm.
crap, and like inside my cells something else is going on, and there's probably like bacteria in my cheek, and if you zoom in there's all kinds of like gross and different processes. But if you zoom out to this max level, it's just like euphoria and everyone's cheering. And then you zoom back in and it's like the
Mm.
production of my next poop. And you zoom back out and I'm on TV in front of millions of people, right? And it's all that same story. Like
all
that, all of that things inside are
different
not changed.
levels of experience of the same reality. That's what's happening. We are right now, we are experiencing reality through a very limited program. This program of perception, human consciousness, we refer to it as shattered. We can also refer to it as being limited, reduced, and really confined by a very narrow program. That is how human consciousness is currently shaped. That program is, we can call it the ego. We live within this program called the ego. What is the ego? It is a limited program of perception. That's what we experience. Everything we go through and experience is within that limited perception. The only thing we need to work on to change is that expansion of the program, to perceive a broader operation in front of us. That because we are in this limited program, we think about it. Your whole experience of the world, everything that is around you, you center it onto yourself. Everything around you is revolving around a very specific interest. You're called your self-interest. And that creates a shattered reality, because each of those bits of consciousness is now bubbled in that limited program. And that's the world we live in. That's the reality that we're in. I think maybe let's segue here into
I
something,
used to
and maybe we'll hover around this perception for a while.
that
Right,
reminded
Chris?
me
Go
of
ahead.
it reminded me of something. I remember when I was a kid. I can't remember exactly what they looked like, but I remember I had this black folder and it was full of like these cards with animals on them,
Mm.
with from National Geographic, and I would kind of collect them. I think there was also something similar. You go to a doctor's office and you can read. You know, there was like stuff for adults and stuff for kids too. You know, I guess depending on what kind of doctor's office you went to. And I remember I started collecting them, and you had like there's a popular ones like the blue-footed booby or whatever, these birds that are extinct or are endangered, and all kinds of animals that are endangered. And
Hmm.
it's almost, and now I look back on it and I see that it was, a way of like, somehow that's important to us. Somehow it's important for humans to know what animals are going to go see. I don't know. It's like it's an instinctive tendency to not want these animals to die. You know, we should save
Right.
them. Why would we let
Yeah,
them
but
die? It seems like
it,
like it's hurtful. Oh, the
mm.
booby. Yeah, there it is.
I've
No,
heard
I
of
mean
that bird
it's the
before.
best one because it was like as a kid you're like the booby, the blue-footed booby. So you're always
Well,
talking about that.
the I'm looking at what the Kabbalists write to us, and if you take that into account, then forget species. You're gonna feel the air, the sun, the ground you're walking on. You're gonna feel that as precious and important to you. But in order to get there, we have to start from the other bits of consciousness, those conscious pieces. That's where we have to start. We have to start with bringing together those shattered bits of consciousness. And if you do that, even with just a few people, that's the wisdom of Kabbalah. You create a mini model with a few people around you who are committed to reminding each other that we are not living in a material world. We are pieces of a shattered consciousness.
I
And
can't I can't
yeah,
stop thinking about this. This is what I'm thinking about all the time.
the material
And
world.
no, this
Oh,
reality of I'm sucked into the material world all the time, but I can't stop thinking about where is our solution? How do we reach our solution? How can we do it
mhm.
better? But I was at the dentist this week, and my
Mm.
dentist was talking to me about Jeopardy. You know what Jeopardy is? It's like a
Like the TV show, game
yeah, it's a
show,
TV,
game
it's a
show.
game show where they
Yeah.
ask questions.
Okay.
And then I was in a work meeting this morning, and people were talking about Jeopardy, and it's I guess somebody's winning a lot of money or whatever, or some the greatest winner ever. But that how it's like what the world is like we're about to enter into a war, the virus, there's so many problems, and people are spending their evenings watching Jeopardy. Now, I understand there's definitely time to just, I need downtime. I'm just going to veg out and watch something. But I didn't get the feeling that this was just like, I'm going to veg out and watch something. I got the feeling like, why are people so focused on something that has absolutely no meaning when the entire world is burning?
Wait, you could
That's why
argue.
it's so paradoxical. The juxtaposition.
Yeah, I like to
When you
veg on the couch too,
yeah,
but
it's
come on.
okay to rest, to have some fun. But when you juxtapose what we're focused on versus what's coming towards us,
Don't look up.
A very
yeah,
timely film.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that yet, but
We
that was a good
didn't.
one.
We've mentioned
yeah.
it a couple of times, but we haven't really focused on it.
Mhm. Yeah,
Very
they did a good
relevant.
job there. They did a good job.
Yeah.
Look, our title says mass extinction. Do we want to go there?
So listen,
Talk about.
so maybe start thinking. So there's that blue-footed booby, right? And it's like there. Well, first of all, you said we have to remind one another. And Seth is saying
Mm,
I'm always thinking about it, but then he's always getting pulled back into the material world. So if you really do think about it, then you can you can you can touch this place somewhere within you that you feel this battle happening. Maybe you don't really feel it as
mm,
it depends on how important each side is to you, but maybe you don't feel it as a battle so much, but you do feel that you do feel this thing that draws you into the values of the world. And then another thing that kind of draws you into this self introspection kind of feeling, where Seth gave that great example of all the stuff that's happening in his mouth and in his gut. And at the same time, there's a whole nother reality happening. So you do feel yourself being really drawn and pulled into different things. And if we I guess the question was, how do we as humanity start reminding and constantly have these reminders and thinking about only that, and think it really does depend on us. And I want to that kind of ties into uh, what was advertised recently as of late, about this mass extinction, because it's like on one hand, you have first of all, what is it? Mass extinction. Mass extinction apparently is uh, when you when you have large numbers of species die in a relatively short period of time. So there's something like that's occurring right now, and on one hand you're like pulled into not really caring about it, on the other hand you think about it and you feel like you should care about it. So it really just depends on how much importance you have, and apparently that the importance depends on society. So right now there's a group of scientists that feel that this is a very important thing to to update, or to to give this news to the world, and they're saying that okay, so there's this IUCN. Oh, I should show you. I should show you what it looks like.
Oh yeah,
It's
we're not seeing your screen if you're showing
yeah.
something.
I'm gonna show you right now. It's the IUCN. Let's just go back to this. Why isn't that showing? I don't have an answer for that.
Don't know.
One second.
What are you showing? We're okay. Okay, now we're seeing something.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So this is the IUCN red list.
Okay.
Red list. It's
Oh,
kind of
the
scary.
threatened species.
Yeah, so this is just, you can come here and you can see more than 40,000 species are threatened with extinction. Okay, I was talking about these, Natural Geographic cards. You have maybe like 100 of them in your thing, and some of them are already dead a long time ago. But here it's talking about 41% of amphibians, 26% of mammals, sorry, 30, okay, so it's including plants and it's including, different types of animal species. But saying more than 40,000 are threatened with extinction. And there was a recent I guess a bunch of a bunch of researchers got together and said no, that's not accurate, because you're not including invertebrates. And if you look at invertebrates, then the picture actually gets a lot worse, which is why they're saying there's an extinction level event in our time, because we're seeing in the previous 5 extinctions, from 440 million years ago to about 65 million years ago, there was 5, and now since about 11,000 years ago when we started agriculture, we've seen a decrease in biodiversity. So what's happening? So they're looking at these invertebrates and they're saying, okay, there's actually a big problem here, because you have invertebrates that are just completely, it's collapsing in the oceans, on land, and they're saying that's not really being included. So it's almost like they're kind of hiding that information. It's not being This is the IUCN is kind of like the face of how is our biodiversity as of now. I mean, they're not really saying anything about it. And other scientists got together and said, hey, this is happening. And that's why you're saying a new mass level extinction is happening. So that's kind of where we are right now. So it's almost like, this has been happening for a long time, but now we're actually gathering the numbers and saying it's a lot worse than it is. And so that's bad.
But most on almost every block in Manhattan, I see retail vacancies, but residential, it's like full capacity. So I don't understand exactly how it's working or what's going on, but there's this artificial or some kind of other, like that Jeopardy thing, right? Like everything is burning, but we just keep this other perception going. The city, New York, like the crime is increasing, the restaurants are leaving, retail is closing, but people keep coming to the greatest city in the world. Like is what is that?
Yeah.
What is happening there? And what is the thing that what is it when we look at all these billionaires that simultaneously sent rockets up to space, for example, while all of this crap is happening on the world and in the world? And how is it that people why aren't more people talking about it? I know there's websites you can go, there's different places where people are talking about these things, but why isn't it in the in the mass consciousness.
Why don't we care?
Why don't we care?
Why
That's
don't we
what I'm
care?
wondering. Why
First
don't
of all,
we
we should
care?
we should
That's-
recognize that we don't care. I mean, we should. That's something you could definitely feel in yourself. You even mentioned it a couple of times. Both of you mentioned it. It's just like, meh,
Well,
okay,
let's
but
make a
might have more
discernment though.
jeopardy.
Hold on. Let's make a discernment. Maybe people do care somewhere inside. But when I was little, there was you guys know what ice hockey is? You guys from the Middle East, South ice hockey.
What is it?
Ice hockey.
Ice hockey.
I could never follow the
hockey
puck
on the
on
ice.
Yeah,
on
sure. I
TV.
mean,
Okay.
I could never
It's
get to it,
definitely
get into
not
it.
a big thing here, or barely existent here
In
in
the Middle
Israel.
East. Okay,
but it's cool. It
So we
looks
had
cool.
we had soccer and baseball and regular things you could play in the yard when I was a kid, but I didn't live in an area where people played ice hockey. And when I found out that it was like a possible thing when I got to high school or whatever, I was like, oh, people can actually do that. It's a totally stupid example. But the point is, like, and I wanted to play and I learned to play and I went and played. The dumb example, but the point is that even if you want something, there's something in our consciousness. Maybe it's that thing if we just have one eye open. Maybe because we're not connected with each other, maybe because we're not connected with each other, we don't even know. Like, I have a spark that I feel something's wrong, right? But then like a fart comes and blows the spark out. Then again, another spark comes up in me and says, something's wrong. We need to change something in life. And then Jeopardy comes on and I forget about it. And then a spark. So we need a few sparks to kind of come together to make a flame. You can't you can't make a bonfire from probably just one tiny spark. But if there was a couple sparks and it hits in the right spot, that's all you need. Then you can have a huge fire.
The spark is momentary. Yeah.
This is a very interesting. This is a very fascinating thing that's happening now in human consciousness. Again, if you go back to the perspective that everything that's happening is the evolution of human consciousness, it is a very fascinating perspective through which to look at what's happening in the world, right? Because we are gradually seeing the program that shapes our perception is showing us that everything is collapsing around us, and yet we become very aware of the fact that we're indifferent to it. This movie we thought about, we just
Don't Look Up.
mentioned Don't Look Up. Yeah, they got it right. They got that point really good. Really, they really got it across that the how there was a funny.
What was a joke? There was a joke in there that the president said. What was it? Do you remember?
Right.
But there could be good minerals on there or
and like
something.
there's this asteroid. Essentially, you have the scientists who are saying like, oh, there's this comet is going down. It's going to eradicate planet Earth. It's going to go into humanity. And the president goes like something like, okay, the optics of that is not so great in terms of my constituency, something like that. And that's really what is happening. There's a virus right now that is spreading through humanity, through the human family, taking casualties and so on. What's our attitude to it? So the growing dissonance that we're seeing is that the program that we're in ties us together. We're beginning to discover it through what appears to us as the external material world. It begins to be more and more binding us together, and yet our individual perceptions are, if it doesn't touch my immediate interests, that's how much I care about it.
Well,
whether
at
I'm
least-
a leader, whether I'm a corporate business leader, whether I'm just an ordinary person. Sure, I don't want anyone to suffer, but that's just because
It's very interesting. It's very interesting that we can't come up with a solution unless we become connected. Like there's no like every endeavor of humanity is just on the backs of another group. Every endeavor of humanity is just a rape of Mother Earth. Every endeavor of humanity is just in exploiting another group or some
you're getting to a point where you can't do anything good without doing a lot of bad with it.
Suppose I
You,
want to eat all organic and I want to have
right.
um, coconuts from Thailand. Yeah, you're getting your baby coconuts from Thailand. They're coming on a ship
Hmm.
across the ocean and then in a truck. There's nothing we can do unless you say, I'm going to only eat out of my backyard. And fine, you can be you can be an animal again and just live and go back to the ancient history, and you can pick the cotton out of your backyard and weave your own clothes. But that's not where humanity is going. Nature's forcing us out, wider, wider, wider. And I think what we're arriving at here is that we won't be able to solve anything as long as we're separated.
And everything that's happening is in order for us to break out of the illusion of separation. That's the crazy thing. All the troubles in our world, all the problems we see around us, this sixth mass extinction that scientists are talking about,
By the way, when is it
again,
coming?
Again, it's
It's a
coming. I
gradual.
don't know.
It's a
It's a
gradual thing.
gradual process. We're
It's been
we're
happening
in
for a
it for
while.
a long
We
time.
have a couple of years anyway.
Isn't this there's all kinds of, I mean, there's all kinds of parameters to look at it. They say like maybe you have like 5 years for the Amazon. You have like there's all kinds of major centers of life support systems that are in decline, that are coming to a point where there's like a point of no return, like the biodiversity thing that Chris just showed. That's a huge thing, right? Like it's not just that you lose this species or that species. You're
No.
losing the biodiversity of life, which essentially allows the conditions that we enjoy in order to for our
The
bodies to survive.
biodiversity,
Yeah.
the greater the biodiversity there is, the more life sustaining elements you have on life. So once that biodiversity begins to decrease, you also see like a population decrease as well. There's kind of a direct link. So we're looking, basically, I guess, because no things can't sustain itself. The animals, the plants can't sustain themselves. Also, that affects the rest of the pyramid. It's
Right.
not looking good. Not looking good.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to that
go
where
ahead.
you're saying where we're starting to notice that this is our attitude. I think that's kind of important because we also kind of jumped right now to like connection between people, but I think that there's something in between where there's this kind of understanding feeling like, oh, this is my attitude and that is not right. Or I don't know, you're not saying right or wrong, but you're saying it doesn't feel right that it's my attitude is to
I'm not sure. I don't
to
know if
ignore
it's.
this
I
a
don't know
little
if
bit.
if it,
Yeah, go ahead, Seth.
I don't know that we're saying it's not right. I think what's happening
Mm.
is people are becoming empty and hopeless. I don't think it's right away. The way well, maybe it is that. The way I'm living is not right. I need to make a change.
It doesn't feel right. Not that you're like saying wrong or right, just it doesn't sit right. Like that.
But there is a huge, huge value to feeling hopeless. You have so many kids now who are given hyperactive drugs and different kind of drugs to calm them down. Basically, you take a
Mm.
child who's born in 2015, okay? He's 7 years old now, something like that.
Right.
You put him in a
My
classroom.
my daughter's age, exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
put the child in this child is a modern child feeling everything. Put them in a classroom
Yeah.
and make them sit at a desk for 7 hours, 8 hours a day, and
Right.
hand them a piece of paper and tell them to fill out things on the paper. And
You
when they
know,
start talking to their
when
friends,
you just explain this reality slowly and you really spell out what's happening, it just makes you recognize how ridiculous this is.
she starts talking
Just
to her
by just by,
friends.
oh
She starts
man.
talking to her friends and she gets in trouble. And what is her
Oh
trouble? She has
boy.
to stay after school and sit in the
Hmm.
chair alone. And when a child starts feeling this is not, they have no words for
Hmm.
this. When the child starts banging off the walls and can't sit still in the class, they drug them.
Hmm.
They call in the
Yeah.
parents to talk about
Yeah.
it's insanity making.
I would say the results the results of our limited perception are negative, are problematic. We are ruining we are continuously ruining the world, the planet, nature, our youth, our psyches. But I can't say that the ego or the egoistic programming that we have is good or bad. It's just initial. It's just juvenile. It's just an earlier phase of human evolution. That's what we know for the past 200,000 years. That's how we are familiar with what it means to be human. But what is happening in our time is that we're gradually being pushed to recognize that there is a different mode of consciousness. There is a broader and deeper phase of human consciousness, and we can begin to experience it. There are some unique individuals who've been experiencing it for the last 5,782 years, called Kabbalists, and they're seeing that our time is a time when we can collectively begin to break through the illusion of separation. It's a very movie-like situation that we're in. Think about it. We live in this material world, which is a program of our consciousness, and we identify each other as different pieces. So I see you outside of me, you see me outside of you, but we can get together on this level, on this material level. And if we get together, these shattered bits of consciousness, if we get together in this material world and we begin to remind ourselves that we're and inspire each other's desire to feel that we're actually one, we begin to float above this material world. And while we stay in it with our bodies, our consciousness rises to a connected perception.
But that's the
From
thing.
that,
It's not.
yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
That's what bothers me a lot, or bothers me in the fact that I feel it on myself and I feel it on others, that I don't it doesn't sit well with me that I feel that I rely on being inspired by others. That feels like it's not a. It's kind of like, seems like a thing that was just kind of made up. Like, where's the evidence for that? Why don't I feel that so deep inside of me that I rely on others? It's almost like it really is like the last thing that I think about as an option to get out of the state that we're in.
Wait a second. In everything, in every little thought that you have in your mind right now, including the clothes you wear and the way you shape your beard and the way you talk and the way you walk, you are chained by iron shackles to the society, to the network, to the human network. It shapes and engineers every thought in your brain and everything that you do and every thought and every feeling that you feel. There are decades of multiple fields of science that are showing just how we are connected on the level of social psychology, on the level of our neuroscience, our through mirror neurons and the like, on the level of touch. When we touch each other, it excites our body in all kinds of neuropeptides and neurotransmitters in your brain are activated. When you see other people doing what they do, when you talk to other people, you are constantly living in a network. But this is what you're expressing is exactly the dissonance between the actual network, where you are in a network of the human network that shapes everything you do, think, and feel, versus your perception of it. Your perception is it.
This right here.
I'm here. I'm separate. Yeah.
This actually answers a huge question, and people are going to hear it now, and it's probably not going to sink in. But this is so fundamental and so critical that we're looking at the world and we're nervous, we're scared,
Mm.
we're depressed, we're uncertain, and there's a group of people, there are some people among us who want to do something, okay? The the main thing, the first thing to do is to understand, is to start to learn and understand who are we? What is the system that we're actually in? And what are the forces working on us? Because it's like being a football player and
Mm.
constantly trying to throw the ball into a basket. You can be the best one at throwing the ball into the basket. It doesn't matter. You don't get any points. You're playing football. And so, like what Chris said here is like, it doesn't feel to me that I am reliant on what other people think and what other
And
people do.
and he's right. And he's right. That's how we feel.
That's how we
That's how
feel.
we feel.
But we don't need to run out today and go and plant any trees or do anything right now. The first thing we need to do is understand who we are and what the system is. And why? Because this system has been operating for beyond time. This
Yeah.
system is not just 14 billion years old. We're in an endless system of fulfillment. We don't feel it because we don't understand what's happening. And why don't we understand what's happening? That's what this wisdom of Kabbalah comes to tell us,
Yeah.
is in order that we can come to it and attain it consciously. That's why we
Yes.
don't.
The reason we live in a shattered perception is in order for us to put it together consciously of our own accord. Here's the thing. Why aren't we perfectly connected to each other to begin with and just feel as one with the world, with the fish, with the rocks, with the minerals, with the planets, with all of the animals, and with everything? Why don't we feel just one? It's a very simple concept that we encounter in everyday life, but we don't understand that it also governs our very existence. And that is that without friction, there is no consciousness, there is no existence. Without friction, there is no feeling, there is no sensation. So if we were one with the program to begin with, that was the initial state of reality Kabbalists discover. We are initially one created being that was completely immersed in the program. We call that
Well,
program in Kabbalah light. It was immersed in a program. Kabbalists call it like a candle that is immersed and disappears in a bigger torch.
let me
Right?
read the first few lines of
Yeah.
the Ari's
Oh, go
poem, The
ahead.
Tree
Go
of
ahead.
Life.
I
He
didn't
says,
notice you were grabbing a book. Go ahead.
He says, behold, that before the emanations were emanated and the creatures
Mm.
were created. So, by the way, emanations and creatures, he's talking about different worlds. So, as the
Different
light is
levels of
cascading to,
concealment. Yeah,
right,
levels
okay.
of concealment over the perception of the created being. Yeah.
So, behold, that before the emanations were emanated and the creatures were created, the upper simple light had filled the whole of existence. There was no vacancy, no empty air, no hollow, but all was filled with that simple and boundless light. There was no
Mm.
head, no tail. Everything was one simple light, balanced evenly and equally. It was called the light of Ein Sof.
Wow.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
amazing. So you can't be absorbed in the endless light and be like, oh yeah, and also like I want that like nice brown sweater, and like give me coffee with like or hot water with lemon and a little honey. Like there is none of that. There's no up and down. There is no friction. There's no friction. That's it.
Yes, that's
Everything
it.
is perfectly in balance in one simple light.
If you're in a womb and the womb is taking care of you and it's enveloping you and it's growing you, but you have no consciousness, then you don't feel the womb and you don't feel yourself.
So the
That's the
contrast here.
situation. Yeah. What?
So the contrast. I feel like if we're talking about the extinction,
Yeah.
well, we're not really
Okay.
talking about
Yeah.
it, but whatever,
Back
we'll
to
use it.
back
No,
to
we don't
the
have to go
sixth
back.
mass extinction.
We
Sorry.
don't have to go back. We got 9 minutes. I'm just saying, it's like we're starting to feel the contrast, friction, right? Contrast, same kind of thing. So we're starting to feel that there is this. It's something that bugs me. And it bugs me a little bit. I want to be
Okay.
there, I want to be there. I want to be feeling nature. I want to do the right thing. I want to be able to make
Okay.
batteries, have this a green energy source,
Mm-hmm.
energy source that doesn't harm the environment in return. I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to have a nice life without causing others harm. But right now I don't see an
Mm-hmm.
option. I don't but I do see that there's something that's really messed up.
Right. The option exists if we change our intention. The option's there. Nature is not a faulty program. Nature is a perfect program. The all of reality is ultimately this boundless, endless light, as Seth was just reading to us. But we cannot experience perfection. What are the qualities of that light? It's beyond time, beyond space, beyond motion. It is complete, utter, eternal perfection. What is our state of being? What is our program of perception? Limited within time, space, motion, transient. We're alive and then we die. That's how what we believe, how we experience
How we feel.
our consciousness. Yeah, exactly. We can never create something that works perpetually, that works in eternity, that is actually perfect. And we will never be able to create anything like that because we are created beings. All we can do, and that's what we need to discover and to rise to that level, is that we need to re-enter that perfect light. We need to re-enter that state where everything is already perfect, is already there. How do we do that? We put the focus on changing ourselves. And if you can create some systems in this seemingly outside world that will help you do it, go ahead and do it.
Well, so hold on. You just talked about all of the science that shows how much all of the way I shape my beard, what I dress, what I eat, I pick up from society. So it's not really that hard work if the people around me value something, if the people around me are working towards something, then I can start to feel that. Like I didn't ever want um, chocolate ice cream. I wasn't born wanting chocolate ice cream. Then once someone gave it to me, I said, "Oh, that's something I want." When we start to see and feel from the people around us this other kind of life starting to happen, then I weigh that against the other option, my miserable, depressed life, and I say, "Oh, this is good." And I can begin to enter onto the spiritual path and even start ascending spiritually by just being among other people who are doing it. It's not even that I have to carry 1,000,000 pounds of weight or kilos up a mountain. I don't. There's so much, and this also gets to population, which is really interesting, especially if we're going to all become extinct. But the reason why population is so big now, in the past, it has to do with it's called the inverse relation of lights and vessels. In the past,
Mhm.
the great sages were way more pure souls than we are, but the light they got, that earlier first lights that came in, all called smaller lights. We are much more grubby, much more corrupted down here. I mean, think of each of us. Everyone, close your eyes for a second and think of
Mhm.
one really corrupt thought you had this week, right? We
Okay.
all have
Today.
Easy.
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 Very easy for us, very easy for our generation. And the light that has to come down to us are huge lights that come all the way down to us. But the reason we have, as we learn, all of this of such a big population is because we each only need to correct a small amount. If there's 100% that needs to be corrected, and you have 5 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, so each of them has to carry a ton of weight. But if you have 8 billion and we're all doing it together, it's very simple. It's very simple. The main shift is just that we don't all want to kill each other anymore, and we all don't want to fight each other anymore. We all want to be ready for the big spiritual secret. We all want to be friends. We want everyone on earth to be friends.
That's
We
still
want
not a goal.
everyone
That still
to be
feels like a.
one.
It feels like
Yeah.
it still feels like a jump in the goal though. You're skipping
Wait,
over
wait.
something here.
Explain. What are we skipping? You're. I feel like you're touching on something important
Yeah,
here. That.
I am touching on something because I felt it immediately when he said that. It's not that I disagree with it. Obviously I agree with it, but there's this thing of like, okay, we can all be friends, fine, that sounds good,
Mhm.
but then there's this parallel reality that doesn't agree, doesn't have the infrastructure to do
Okay,
that.
let me try again. I'm gonna start from a million years, but just to try to bring these two things together. The paradox, the dissonance that exists between two opposite perceptions, one where we're completely connected, eternally bounded together by the upper light, feeling as one created being, a single consciousness, and one where we are completely shattered to the very tiniest little bits of pieces that can ever be, it can't be separated more than that. Those two perceptions, those two modes of existence, they're both required because consciousness, something called the middle line by Kabbalists, is built from the tension between the two. We need to, that's the friction again. In order, what does the light wanted? The light wanted to create a consciousness that can contain it, that can absorb it, that can develop the sensory vessel to experience it. It it's like, think about it like electricity, right? There has to be plus and minus between that tension can be held. That's why human consciousness was created as the solution to this problem, that the light wanted someone to feel it. And so it creates and develops human consciousness through this opposite cone, through this plus and minus that are constantly growing away from each other. That's at the root of what we're seeing in human evolution. Just a quick thing to try to do a book ending here with the mass extinction thing, right? So I
So
looked it
try
up.
and extinction all real quick.
Sorry, I understand how it sounds. I'll assume that our listeners are already deep
Let's
in
just talk about the mass extinction,
deep
get
in
it
the
over with, so I don't have to think about it
deep
again.
in
All
the
right, go.
wormhole. They're deep in the wormhole with us. So it's the in 2006, Al Gore. I just looked it up recently in preparation for the show. 2006, Al Gore came out with this Inconvenient Truth film, right? And no one knew before that exactly how bad things are. It wasn't common knowledge. It was a select few, and that kind of, today everyone knows. Everyone understands. When you hear this headline that you just showed us about, when you see this headline about the biodiversity, or where I saw it on futurism.com, as they had something like sixth mass extinction is coming now, something like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, another, yeah, sure, the what else
Where do I
what
get
else
my
Is
is on
anything
T-shirt?
else
TV?
on?
What else is on TV?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so what is happening? What is happening? Two things are happening at the same time. We're discovering the shatteredness, the corruption of our perception that is reflected in our indifference to everything that's happening. And then on the other hand, we also see that we're inextricably, inevitably connected to each other, to all of nature, and something has to have, at some point, the tension is going to be too much between these two extremes. When the tension will reach a certain threshold, a new consciousness will have to be born on a collective global scale. That's why the mass extinction is really not an extinction. It's only an extinction of our current mode of perception, allowing us to rise to a completely new level of life. And it might get bad before it gets better. That's true. But if we remind each other where it's all going, if we begin to make each other feel, to awaken that feeling of connection between our shattered pieces of perception, then we can hasten this process, because the program, the value, the evolutionary value of the program of that develops our consciousness is just to take us to that point where we feel where we were, and we feel separated, and we feel also how we're consciously connecting above the separation. If it happens with more wars or less wars, or more species or less species, that's up to us. We can totally hasten this process, take it into a conscious development, and avoid wars and mass extinctions. It's all up to us at the end of the day.
That sounds better. I feel a little bit
All right,
better.
guys.
I feel like I can go watch a little Netflix now. I'm calmed down. I feel a little bit better.
Good point.
Let's get this over
Good
with
point.
already. No, we're almost there. You said it's all about reminding. We've got a bunch of people with us. They're joining us. Do we have people coming to listen? They also want to feel what's going on. They also
Yeah.
want to sense a little bit
Yes.
more, make it more tangible. So that's happening. So maybe we won't get to the 6th mass extinction after all. Maybe.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming,
Thank you.
for being here, for being a part of this conversation, and also bearing with all kinds of phenomena that are happening, like trolls in our chats. That's
Those-
also a part of
those are there
part of
too.
our perception.
Sure.
That's a part of our consciousness. That's also a part of us. We love everyone. We're aiming to develop such a love that is for everyone who appears to us. It doesn't matter whether they're in favor or against.
Everyone's got
At
to
the
get
end
there.
of the day, we're all connected.
We got
at
to
the
get
end
there
of the day.
together.
Nothing's gonna from nature's point of view, we're one. Either we understand it, the hard way, or the better way. I'm for the better way.
Me too. Till next time.
Seth, till next
Everyone,
time.
we'll
Yeah.
see you. Yeah, we'll see you next Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks, everyone. Big hug to everyone. Let's do it. Bye. Thanks, guys in the Middle East. See you soon.
Give us a song. No song? There we go.
Masked up, gotta block the call. Masking up my heart from egoistic thoughts. Learning all the lessons that this pressure gave us. Wanna save myself, I gotta save my neighbors. Slowly recognizing egoistic nature. Showing us connection is the only savior. We gon' come together, plow these fields of hatred. All is one with sowing seeds of love relations.
You shatter these walls, recycle this heart from the chains of time. Then we soar through oceans in the sky. Oh, through your cold, to be in love with you, watch you with a bird's eye. See the world is filled with you. It's time in a field that is blessed.
Purification, covering the hate with love. Revelation, blessings raining from above.
Just to run in a field that is blessed, and to come home with you and to rest. Just to run in a field that is blessed, and to come